Net Podcast. The Third Degree Net Podcast. The Third Degree Net Podcast. The Third Degree Net Podcast.
Hi, this is Big B from the Third Degree Discord. Third Degree the podcast is brought to you by Soccer 90, your source for FC Dallas, North Texas SC, and U.S. national team gear. With everything from jerseys, soccer cards, and scarves, Soccer 90 has something for everyone. Shop soccer90.com now, and as listeners of the podcast, you can receive 20% off your order when you use code Third Degree at checkout. Some exclusions may apply. And after you get done ordering soccer gear from Soccer 90, look into joining the Third Degree Patreon. If you follow FC Dallas and like this podcast, you'll love being a Third Degree patron.
Well, hello there, FC Dallas Curious fan. Welcome to another episode. Numbered, please.
173.
173 of Third Degree, the podcast. Hi. Hello again. It is me, Peter. Alongside, via the miracle of the internet, your favorite Englishman living in Texas. Howdy, Dan Crooke.
Howdy, Peter Welpton.
Am I correct in seeing that Luton Town has not gotten off to the best of starts this season in the championship?
No, just setting ourselves up for a great season in League One next year. Yeah, I think it's 2 points in 4 games.
You think they're going to go from nearly getting promoted to the Premiership to getting relegated to the 3rd Division all in the course of 12 months? Is that what you're predicting?
That's why the Championship's the best league in the world. No, I think it's just a slow start. Hopefully they'll click and get going again.
Because I was really looking forward to playing you twice next season in the Championship.
I was looking forward to the 6 points.
I'm sure you were. And of course, your hero, my hero, everybody's hero, editor, founder of thirddegree.net, the amazing Buzz Carrick. Come in, Buzz.
Peter, I'm quite sad you're not asking me about how my English team that I follow is doing.
Okay, how is your English team doing?
I feel like it's pretty good. Do you not feel like it's pretty good?
Newcastle?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going okay.
It's pretty exciting.
What are you on? 2? Are you on 4 points?
I don't know. It's a whole lot more than Manchester United is all I know.
All right. We just spent like a cajillion dollars on a 30-year-old from Real Madrid named Casemiro, who, by the way, is an absolute baller, and I'm excited to have him. But it seems like a move they should have made 3 years ago, but that's a different podcast. Okay. Well, boys, boy howdy. We talk about form all the time on this podcast, and it wasn't that long ago where we were lamenting a run of bad form. But look where we are today. Look at us here. In the last 6 games, the team is 4-1-1. And by the way, that one loss is that really interesting game up in Seattle, and the tie was the road game in Portland. So things are looking up for the old FC Dallasers these days, right, Buzz?
Yeah, right about the start of August, we talked about how there was, again, the schedule's been rough all year, but there was a meaty part of the schedule ahead where you were going to Seattle, you were going to Portland. San Jose wasn't going to be tough, but you were going to have Philly at home, you were going to have Nashville. That one's still to come, but we talked about how you're going to really find out whether you're a legit contender or whether you're just a decent team in the West. Now we know this is a legit contender team. Now, there's still a separation between them and LAFC, and in terms of points, clearly, in terms of Austin, they're having a great season. I think LA is definitely better, but that's a different discussion as well. The bottom line is Dallas has clearly positioned themselves as the next best team in the league. They've handled the teams they're supposed to handle. They've done some decent performances on the road, which is a sign of a good team. So I feel much better about this team 4 weeks later than I did back at the beginning of the month. You know, they've sort of rallied back, and they're now, what is it, like 4-1-1 over the last 5 or something? So it's a really nice feeling to have.
Yeah, we came away from the northeast or northwest road trip feeling pretty good about the team. Getting to, only losing to Seattle by a goal is never anything to be ashamed of, and getting the draw in Portland also felt pretty good. But I got to tell you, I was at the game versus San Jose, and last night, that is really two performances for very different reasons to really feel like things have started to find a groove with the club, and a lot of it, I believe, has to do with Sebastian Lletget.
Yeah, that move has solidified midfield, because we've been talking a lot this season about Brandon being a little up and down, and how Siki at the beginning was obviously a rookie, and he's progressing, and there's things to like about in the future. He has good games and bad games. Well, you take a guy that's in the prime of his career from another MLS team, a French national team player, a solid MLS piece, paid a fair amount of money, but they're not paying for his salary this year, and he plopped that into midfield next to Paxton, and your midfield just went from a kind of like an okay part, but with some question marks, to like a solid locked in part of your team. Like that move answered so many questions about this team and solidified so many things about this team in terms of its roster and where it is for this season. It's just fantastic. And there's a new confidence around the team. There's a new confidence demonstrated by the standings and your results. And that's what matters, right? Is results. This is a result oriented sport, like all sports, professional sports are. You got to produce, and they're producing, and it's exciting.
Dan, this Lletget signing, as interesting as it was, really does answer the one thing that at least on this particular podcast, we'd been moaning about all season and into last offseason, which was it's kind of romantic and cool to think that you're going to have three homegrowns running your midfield, but what this team really needs is an injection of a veteran player that can actually do the goods and knows the league, and that's, I really think, the biggest thing that they're getting out of Lletget.
Yeah, I mean, a guy who's had success in the league as well. Someone with, albeit one FA Cup appearance, brief experience in England, coming for a Premier League academy. Things that we talk often about Faku and Hara and how their veteran responsibilities are effectively bringing through, in Hara's case, Pepe and Ferreira, and in Faku's case, kind of coaching Cerrillo. But to have someone who's kind of gone through all those experiences and still in the prime of their career, where they can really do both roles of actually contributing on the field and contributing on the training ground in the locker room, I mean, that's worth a lot more than $600,000 over 2 years.
Yeah, and Buzz, I think maybe the most genius aspect of the Lletget addition is the fact that he's American, or at least plays on the American national team, and knows and understands the system and has spent time playing with Jesus and Areola, and even, as he said in his post-game quotes, to a degree, even with Paxton Pomykal.
Yeah, and this coach and
this coach, yeah,
this system, and from all of his quotes, and obviously we don't know the man, but from all of his quotes, he was extremely, extremely excited to be here. And, he's got a goal in mind, something clearly from the outside to prove in terms of the national team. He's going to be as fired up as he can be over the back end of this season. Now, if he does or doesn't make the team, that's an issue for what it might do to him going forward. But for the short term, and hopefully for the next several years, this is a guy that's a perfect fit for this franchise in terms of its need for a little bit of veteran leadership. It is one of the youngest teams in the league still, but that nuance in midfield. He has a tiny bit of his game, very similar profile to Paxton, but a tiny bit of his game in terms of actual goals and assists that Paxton doesn't quite have yet. So that allows the double effect of letting Paxton be more of a box-to-box guy, which in my opinion is his more pure natural position. So, I mean, everything about this move is great. We went over it extensively when it happened, and so far these two games since then have proven, it's more than two, that it's exactly what we thought it was going to be.
I mean, really, I think I'm right in saying the only thing we're missing out of a performance from him is a goal, right?
Yeah, I think a goal. I think he's had 3 assists now. So it's just the goal. But that's not a player that you need goals from, particularly when you have Jesus Ferreira doing what he's doing. If you get 1 or 2 out of him over the course of a season, that's great. He came in with some. He'll probably get 1 here or there. That's not the job of that position. Assists is more that job of that position, and that's so far he's already delivering in spades in that regard.
All right. Well, since the last time we talked, there have been the 2 games, the 4-1 win on Saturday night against San Jose, and then last night's extremely impressive win over Philadelphia. So let's take a few minutes to talk about them each individually. The San Jose game, as I said, I was at, and I got to tell you, man, I don't know if I can remember a time where a team came up to Frisco and played worse defense than I had witnessed by the Earthquakes on Saturday night. It was like they were actively trying not to play defense. It was weird.
Yeah, all I can say probably is that's a team full of guys that are trying to win jobs. They know that someone out there, their coach, is going to be watching, and he was indeed watching, their new coach. So, once they give up a goal, they were desperate to try and compete, and they all got forward and stopped really focusing and exposed themselves even more. So, before the game, what we said was, this is a team at the bottom of the standings, a team that's in disarray, a team that's changing coaches. You need to stomp on this team, and Dallas did that. I mean, that's a game before where Dallas has come in meek and not done that. And so to develop that ruthless streak of just destroying a team you're supposed to win against is a delightful thing to see if you want to see this team progress.
Who is your man of the match in that game?
Jesus. I thought Jesus was just absolutely phenomenal in that game. It was one of his best performances, I thought.
Dan, did you have any big takeaways from that game, or was that the game that you were out of town for? I don't remember.
I just got back into town, so I kind of skimmed it more than anything. Saw the goals, but I was kind of running in and out as the game was going on, unfortunately.
Well, it was interesting, and it was fun to see in person. Lletget is a really nice addition, and to be able to see him play with the team. Now, unfortunately, I only got to see him play with Paxton for a little bit of that time, and I don't know if there's much more about the San Jose game in particular you guys want to talk about. It was just a good, smart, dominating performance against the team, as you said, Buzz, they needed to beat and beat badly, and they did that. The finishing was there. The goal scoring was there. They really limited the chances. Abobasi's shot, there was a bit of a disappointment in how they didn't, cover him, but that was an amazing hit. He just absolutely murdered that ball. But other than that, they did a really good job of just shutting the Earthquakes down. Yeah,
the only couple of things I have was that when they first went into the sort of lower block look when they were up 3-0, I think it was at 3-0, they got too passive. We've talked about that many times before, and they just didn't close down. Both Lletget and Cerrillo did not close down Abobasi enough, and that's why you got that goal. I mean, granted, as you said, it's a bomb, but you got to stay active even though you're playing in a deeper set. The other two things were, Alan Velasco, because that's a guy we've talked about a lot. He did have 4 key passes in that game and 13 duels. So he had a really good game as well. I still stuck with Jesus, but Velasco was in that conversation. Strong game by him. Offensively speaking, not as great defensively, but again, it was 4-1. And the other thing was how aggressively this coach is using, and in particular in this game, the 5 subs rule, basically 100% is squad rotation. I think like at the 60-minute mark or shortly after, he took out Jesus, Paxton, Lletget, Martinez, who was having the leg problem. It was like he was, maybe it was Ariel, I can't remember, right in front of me. But anyway, it was like 5 of his core players he took out relatively shortly, right at 60 minutes or right afterwards. And that's a very aggressive move in terms of rotation. He's managing his squad, managing workloads through that rule rather than saying, I'm going to rotate the starting lineup and mess with some cohesion early. And it allows you, in this case, to dominate the first half, take the game over, and then relax and take guys out. So those are the importances of those games for me was those three items.
The shocking thing about that game was I did not know that somewhere along the way San Jose had decided to make Tommy Thompson a right fullback.
I did not either.
Yeah, which by the way, because I was literally sitting in the front row on the east side, I was super close to him for the first half. He's not a very good right back.
No.
He's the best meme that MLS has ever created.
What is that a reference to?
Well, I mean, just his career. Remember, he was like so overhyped as there was enough hype behind him to call him the next Freddie Adu almost, and then
I see what you mean.
Just kind of been bang average.
Well, you take a kid with at least at the time was demonstrating some high level of skill, and then you throw him back at right. It just was weird to me when I saw him. Well, first off, it was strange because down at field level, they were pushing both their fullbacks up so far up the field. I was having a hard time sorting out what formation they were playing because I was confused. It was Tommy Thompson, who I assumed was playing like a wide midfield position because he was so far up the field initially in the game, and because it's Tommy Thompson, I didn't know he was playing fullback. It just all seemed very, very weird, and it took me a good 5 or 6 minutes to sort out what I was watching on the field because I just couldn't figure out why San Jose was pushing everybody up so far up the field and exposing themselves that way. But then they gave up the early goal and it just got worse, and they just weren't very good.
Yeah, they've had a rough year. I don't know that it's necessarily good to judge anyone on that team by this season. I mean, Cade Cowles looked horrible. It's just not been good.
Well, we did get the news, and I think they made it official today, that related to all of that is that San Jose has hired Luchi Gonzalez as their new head coach. And I get that there's only 30 of these gigs available, and I know Luchi really wants to be a head coach again, but I'm not sure that's I don't know, man. That just seems like a weird fit to me, or maybe it's the perfect fit. I don't know.
Yeah, well, if you think about, as you say, it's the 30 jobs thing. It's like passing up a gig is tough. He's had a year of learning under another coach, probably hopefully to his benefit. San Jose does have a bit of a history of producing some academy quality and some young players. They don't have too high of an expectation. There is some talent there. I mean, Abobasi's a pretty good player, if nothing else. If they're willing to give him a little backing, which he didn't quite get here towards the, as that roster deteriorated when he was a coach here. I can think of worse jobs. It's not like their fan base is going to have like a super high expectation that you're going to come in and turn the thing over in like a season, and all of a sudden it's going to be incredible.
Mm-hmm.
I think it might be a pretty good move for him because, hey, if you fail spectacularly, club's a shit show. No one's gonna blame Luchi for that. If he could have the effect that Nico's had of coming in and guys like Paul Arriero and Sebastian Lletget, like, hey, someone who's really close with Berhalter kind of rotates around the US system. Maybe if I get with him, I can get a leg up for for the national team. Just and yeah, they've got their academy is producing some fantastic talent. You've got all the I guess the homegrown territory of Sacramento, San Francisco, all the great teams in Northern California. So I mean, it has the potential to be a really good move for him.
I'm most interested to find out if Luchi has matured in his time with the national team and correct some of the things that I think we all perceived were his shortcomings in his time here in Dallas, right? Like he got thrown into the fire. He had been nothing but a coach for kids, and now suddenly had to learn on the fly how to deal with veterans. And I'm always taken back to the Franco Jara incident as an example of really his problems. And his over-talking and his constant yelling from the sideline and over-teaching and just kind of his lectury vibe. I'm really interested to see if any of that is changed or tempered when he gets there.
Yeah, all of those things are areas in which I think Greg Berhalter excels. So hopefully for Luchi's sake, and listen, I think at his core, and we said this when he got hired, I think there's a day that Luchi will be a great head coach for pro teams. He just had a lot of things he had to learn, a lot of things to work on, and he got thrust in before he was really ready. So if he picks up from Greg some of those adult man management skills, some of that more of a stoic form on the sideline. I mean, Greg's not totally flat, but he's certainly much more reticent than Luchi is, and some of that over preachiness and that Greg is a very sort of focused and direct kind of guy. So, you can hope that Luchi was a big believer in self-education and also self-analysis. So you would hope that Luchi would have seen what went well and what didn't well, and then taking some time under Greg to absorb some of those things that he could do better at, and hopefully he'll apply them going forward. Is he going to be ready to kill it right now with San Jose? I don't know. I actually think he probably would have benefited from, moving from the national team if Greg didn't carry forward, move from the national team to like an assistant under somebody else in MLS, expose himself to a little more things. But I certainly can't complain about the opportunity that San Jose is, and given how much Luchi is interested in self-education and improvement, I hope that he will absorb some things from Greg to balance himself out a little better.
And most interestingly is that he's been able to negotiate a deal where he still gets to go to the World Cup, and he doesn't actually take that gig until the start of next season.
Yeah, that's not surprising. I mean, when Nico came in here to Dallas, he did the same thing last winter. Remember, he went to the U.S. camp for like 3 weeks or something at the end of the season. So, and was still working kind
half
of
a season. This is like, I mean, I'm not criticizing it. I think it's a great move on everybody's part. It makes sense. It's just interesting that he gets to hang out and still get to go to Qatar. Good for him.
It'll be interesting to see what happens next year because his contract's up with US Soccer at the end of this year. All of the coaching staff are at the end of the cycle.
Well, I'm assuming it just ends because he's signed a deal to take over a head coaching gig. I would have.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, if Berhalter's out, then he's got an insurance policy.
I see what you're saying.
If Berhalter carries on, does he try and negotiate the idea of being an assistant and San Jose coach?
Oh, wow, yeah.
Hadn't pondered that. Has there been a case of that anytime recently that I'm forgetting?
It's been a while.
There has, but I don't know about here.
Yeah, the youth national teams do it a lot more often.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it was a great result. San Jose's terrible right now, but that's exactly the kind of whooping you got to put on a team like that. And it really came at a good time for Dallas, and really kind of bolstered the good run of form that they had been on, dating back to the RSL road game. So that takes us to last night, Wednesday night. We're recording this on Thursday evening. I got to tell you, I didn't know what to expect out of this game. Philadelphia clearly is one of the better teams in the league. They have an impressive record of defense and goal scoring. There's lots of things to like about those guys. That may be one of the overall best performances and results I've seen out of this team in quite some time, Buzz.
Yeah, this is a massive, massive win. I wrote or said on the podcast last time, and I think I wrote about it in my preview too, that this for Dallas was going to be a litmus test because this is the best team in the East, one of the best teams in the league. If you think you're really a competitor, this is a game you're going to find out. Now, of course, home field advantage matters in Major League Soccer. Philly has not done a lot coming here. That does not change the fact that they are a really, really good team. They've only had 3 losses in the year before this game. Now, granted, all of them were on the road, but nonetheless, they tend to play a way that Dallas does not handle well, which is a mid-block, which makes it hard for you to get through the middle, shifting to a low block, hard for Dallas to break down. So this is a team that it lines up and in fact plays in a very similar style to Dallas. Dallas also does the same thing, plays in a mid to low block a lot of the time. When they get the ball, they go forward really quickly. Philadelphia actually goes forward even quicker, not an over-the-top counterattack, on the ground quick, through Gazdag or whatever his name is, up through their wingers. They are a phenomenal team. And so to get a result against them was massive. And you could tell going in that they thought that way because they rolled out 100% their best 11 that they have available. And none of those subs were about rotation. Every single one of them was a strategic move late in the game to take care of it. It was not, man management was out the window. Minute management was out the window. It was all in on this game.
You mean best 11 and man management on Dallas's part,
Dallas'
not Philly's part.
Yeah, Dallas's part. Well, I mean, that's pretty much Philly's best 11 too. That was not a rotated squad that I could see. I mean, I don't know their squad up and down like I do Dallas's, but their big guns were out there, and they were taking that game pretty seriously. There was a lot of chatter that they were going to come in and take care of business. So that was a remarkably big win for Dallas.
All right. So in your post game instant reaction video, you named Edwin Cerrillo as man of the match, and I thought that was pretty interesting. One of the things that I came away from the game, Buzz, was I really wished Cerrillo had a little bit of Philly's Martinez in him, because I thought Martinez was a really good quality, my kind of 6 in that game, and I wish Edwin had a little bit of his qualities.
Yeah. For me, this was the best game Edwin's ever played.
Really?
Yeah. Now, that doesn't mean he's Kyle Beckerman. It just means this is the best game he's ever played. He had the assignment of marking Gazdag, their best player, their difference maker, their engine, the guy that scores all their big, huge, massive goals. He was his good defensive self with range. Yes, Edwin still needs to develop a little bit of nastiness. We've talked about that. But he got a little over-aggressive early and had to calm down a little bit because he was, he'd gotten attention from the referee and he needed to slow down just a bit. But more specifically, the thing we've been knocking Edwin on, and the thing that hasn't been getting him into games, was his ability to help his team build. And we talk a lot about how Edwin's good with progression when he picks the ball up on recoveries. He turns and can dribble away from guys a little bit. Siki has the same quality, and then can pass from there. What Edwin is not good at is putting himself in good position, what we would call showing for the ball, moving into positions to help his team build out in good shape, help his team relieve pressure and get out of the back. He was light years better in that quality. It was a massive, massive step forward for him. If he plays like this every game, he will retain the starting job and Falcon won't get it back. This was his best performance for me as an FC Dallas player. Is there room to be better? Absolutely. He could still learn all kinds of things and be a whole lot better player. He's still not Grezzo. But in the context of this game and marking their best player out of the game and making that leap forward in terms of possession, I thought he was just phenomenal.
Okay. I thought he was great too. He had a turnover early in the game that I was worried about, but he really recovered from that. Like I said, Martinez guy playing for Philly has just got a little bit of a mean streak in him.
Yeah. He's
one of those guys that appears to get away with fouling guys multiple times and never getting a card for it. He's got that Diego Chara quality to him, and that's just something I think I'd like to see Edwin pick up. Dan, I guess I want to move on to somebody else that we've spent a lot of time talking about on this podcast and debating or discussing or criticizing or whatever, and that is what I think. If Buzz thinks that's Edwin Cerrillo's best game ever for this club, I would tell you I think last night was Alan Velasco's best game ever for this club.
I thought you were going to say Emma Tumasi. Yeah, I was right there with you. Velasco looked fantastic. Some of the credit actually needs to go to Paxton Pomykal. Pomykal was playing a dual role, dropping back to almost double pivot with Cerrillo to deal with Gazdag at the point of the diamond, but then at the same time, Velasco's really good at picking up the ball and coming inside, and Pomykal was there to kind of take the outside to give that outlet if need be. Mm-hmm. Even when you look at the shape. On both sides, that was kind of happening. It was happening with Tumasi and Leggett, where Tumasi was coming inside and Leggett was kind of sticking out on the build out from the right. But Velasco, yeah, I think he joint led the team in shots with Jesus. He was actually being useful with his shooting. He was being mindful with his positioning from shots. His passing was smooth. He wasn't making those really ridiculous straight line runs, just expecting players to move out the way.
And I'm pretty sure on at least more than one occasion I saw him take on a defender and actually beat them on the dribble. One time he cut back to the inside and had a really nice shot on goal. That's the thing that I think has been missing from his game that I anticipated when they signed him for all that money. And so that's really delighted me. Like, I've been really pleased with the other aspects of his growth in the game, the defensive part, his effort, those types of things. But getting at defenders and being that guy that can create opportunities and be dangerous is what I thought was missing, and a little bit in the San Jose game, but a lot last night in the Philadelphia game. Buzz is what got me excited for him.
Yeah, he had I think in San Jose it was 4 key passes. In this game he didn't have any key passes, but Dallas only had 13 shots, so they were kind of low in the key passes thing. But I agree with the assessment that it was his best game for FC Dallas in his time here too. I mean, he was like I kind of had these three candidates for man of the match, and you could even include Jesus, who had a phenomenal game by any measure you want to give it. But, it's for me, it's always about the strides forward. And for this game, Velasco was such a stride forward. He came inside and commanded attention. He was going outside. He was going at guys. He had 11 duels. He had like a 90% pass rate, a decent XG if you're into that kind of thing, which I'm not, but, people like it. It was just a really quality game from him. When ever since really there was the time where his family came and visited, or they came and stayed here, whatever it is, his progression since then has been remarkably good and positive. And again, just a great game, and all at the right moment, right? You love when they guys have games like this, these remarkable good games, when it's against a team when it really, really counts. So that's the best part.
Yeah, and I think really the most impressive thing about last night, and Dan kind of started this when he thought I was going to mention Emma Tuamase having his best game. Now that I think about it, Buzz and Dan, if you really kind of go player by player by player, there was a lot of best ever performances across the starting 11 last night. I thought Farfan was amazing last night. I even thought Jose Martinez was good for him. Yeah, Hedges looked great. Emma looked great. Areola, minus a missed header opportunity, I thought was really active. I was really impressed with the overall quality of the team from front to back, and how everybody really stepped up and threw out really impressive performances.
Yeah, I will agree with the Emma, really strong performance. I want to give you one grain of salt on the outside backs in terms of the strong performances. Emma Tuamase had a really high volume of touches in this game, and that's because Philadelphia plays a narrow 4-4-2. There is no winger on top of the outside backs. So they clog the middle with two strikers and a number 10, and they force you to play outside to your outside backs and go up the outside rather than through the gut, which means that both outside backs are going to get a really high volume of touches, and they're not going to be contested. And what Philadelphia does is when you get up to midfield and you start to run into where their outside back is, because they're playing a mid block and trying to deny you to play through the middle of the field, then if your outside back has the ball, they over rotate to your side and pin you on the side. So in that context, high volume of touches and high volume of good passes, but I thought Ema was really good about getting up the field and finding guys and making little combinations and providing little outlets and keeping possession going and letting them get through the middle. So some of the stats are skewed because of the shape, but agree 100% that Ema had a really, really nice game. You just can't let those stats fool you a little bit into thinking he's like Brian Reynolds all of a sudden flying down the side and firing all these crosses. He's not that kind of player. Really strong game with a tiny caveat of the system.
Well, beating Philadelphia 1-0, and I thought another aspect of the game is just holding on to the lead. This team has really struggled with that over the course of the season. Philly was dropping bombs in from every corner of the field, repetitive, time and time again, and I was really impressed overall with just the performance. And to your point, even the subs, like all the subs that he made, totally made sense. Obviously the one thing that I think was a little bit of concerning was all of the kind of like self-touching Jesus was doing around his abdomen as he was he clearly at one point asked to come off. He kind of turned to the coaches and said, "Hey, look, something's going on," and he was poking on his belly as he went off the field. I hope he doesn't have a hernia is what I'm hoping for.
He said after the game that doctors did a quick assessment on him and said there's nothing that he needs to worry about. I mean, he's going to have a couple of days off with missing the next game, so hopefully it should just be a normal week.
All right. Well, I'll take your word at that, because he's because he did get the weird yellow card in that ruckus late in the game, which puts him in suspension, right, Buzz?
Yeah, well, assuming that both the team notes and the league website are correct, yes, that means he'll sit out of the game. I will add, though, that in the terms of the growing up of this team and some of the time delaying shenanigans, that they were pretty good about how they went about it in this game. I was reminded, and I told my wife the story, that when players go down on the ground, and some of it is real, some of it's an attempt to delay the game. We all know that. They often have sort of worked out ways with trainers, so the trainer will know whether they're actually hurt or whether they're just going around it. And the one example I know for sure, because he told me after he retired, was Dario Sala had this indicator when he would be on the ground. The trainers would come out. He told him, if I'm banging my hand on the ground like I'm hurting, that means I'm fine. So that was like his signifier that I'm actually fine. Don't worry about me. And so I'm telling you, like, they have little clues. Like
I'm
that.
sure they do.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they all do it. And that's the one the player told me what it was. So, you know, the shenanigans, there was a little bit of the gamesmanship, a little bit of guys staying down, a little bit of like, you know, pause getting banged. Oh, he's down for like 5 minutes. I mean, it wasn't that bad, but you know, this is part of modern soccer. This is part of killing off games that are really intense, modern games that matter, like this statement wins like this. So it's a sign of maturity. It's a sign of progression of the team. And I thought it was all really well done.
So, funny thing last night, we were talking, you know, statement win and how good Philly are. Everyone's talking to Paxton in the locker room, and he stops and he goes, "Let me tell you, Philadelphia is a fucking phenomenal team." And Emma Tomasi and Kosi Tafari just start laughing, just going, "Fucking phenomenal, fucking phenomenal."
Yeah. I thought Paxton was another one that just had a world-class game.
Yeah, phenomenal.
He was getting targeted so badly as well.
It was.
Yeah, this is the Paxton engine, the box-to-box guy, the relentlessness of that guy. This is the perfect game. This is why I've been talking about for years that this is his natural position to play this deeper box-to-box role. And he was just absolutely phenomenal. He almost by himself ate up like a whole third middle of the field. It was incredible.
I'm really excited to see that pairing in another team, not against a diamond. A diamond midfield, so that he's not got that kind of shifting role and can play like the true box-to-box without having to necessarily, you know, temp 6 alongside Cerrillo.
Yeah, I mean, Philadelphia has an extra man in there, so it was 4-3 all the time. You know, it'll be interesting to see how it looks when it's a regular 3-3 matchup. If Paxton will have a little more freedom to break forward, like Leggett was in last night.
Well, again, it does all seem to hinge and go back to the addition of Leggett to the team, which just is all something we need to give full credit for. That's an amazing signing. I'm still not 100% sure how they managed to pull that off, and I'm sure there's some of those MLS shenanigans in the background that help make that happen, but whatever, it's worked out in Dallas's favor, and knock on wood, it will continue to as we end up finishing up. It is hard to believe that there now remains only how many games are there left?
Is it 8?
Is there 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games?
7. Yep, 7.
Is the Kansas City the last game, the 34th game? Yeah.
Yep.
So there's only 7 games left in this season, which blows me away. And it's not the most brutal of schedules. I mean, here's the thing, guys. How many times over the course of the season have we all looked forward into the calendar and went, "Oh my God, this is brutal"?
Many, yeah.
It's kind of nice to be on the opposite side as well. Of not every season, it's there's this game in hand. Dallas has played the most games of anyone in the league.
Yes, they have. And, and so the remaining schedule, just for anybody that's not looking at it while we talk about this, they've got at Nashville this weekend, home game against Salt Lake, at Minnesota, LAFC comes to town, then they go to San Jose, they go to Colorado, and end the season against Kansas City. And I got to tell you, in comparison to some of the runs of games they've had over the last 2.5, 3 months, that looks pretty easy peasy compared to what they've done. Now, not to jinx it or anything, but that bodes well for being in one of those all-important guaranteed home game playoff
as
situations.
schedules go. Yeah, Nashville is not having a great year. They're middle of the pack this year, right? Salt Lake here is good. Home's good, right? At Minnesota, that's not so easy. LAFC, that's a really, really good team. Again, it's here, though. That helps you. And then you cannot ask for better finish than San Jose, Colorado, Kansas City, based on where those teams are in the standings right now. That's as good a run in as you're going to get.
Yep.
And no midweek messing around. Those results can obviously be crazy. I'm sure some people in Philadelphia will put last night down to, it's a midweek travel. You always lose to a crap team for those.
Yeah, Minnesota is interesting. They're 5-3-4 at home, so that's an opportunity. And as you mentioned, Buzz, Salt Lake has been good at home, but not great on the road. They're 3-6-4 on the road. So that bodes well. And Dallas is now 6 points behind Austin and way many points behind LAFC, but they also have played 2 more games in Austin. Just as a comparison, just because I haven't looked at this yet while I'm looking this up, I just want to say, because we always love to measure it. So Austin has a similar kind of deal. So Austin has at Minnesota, LAFC, Portland, at Nashville, at Seattle, Salt Lake at home, Nashville at home, at Vancouver, and they close the season out against Colorado and down in Austin. That's a little more difficult. Yeah.
I mean, if they stumble, 6 points is doable. If they stumble a little bit, some of those Pacific Northwest trips don't catch them up. Those are some teams, Seattle, Nashville, Portland, that are trying to make the playoffs, that have a legit shot. They're only a couple points out.
Yeah.
Once you get down to your Houston, San Jose's, and Kansas City's, they're way out. So, it's those teams that are between, LA on 33 points, LA, Vancouver, Nashville, Portland, Seattle 32 points, Colorado 31. It's like that's the bandwidth right there that can cause you trouble when those teams get fighting and clawing, and particularly if you go on the road. So if Austin makes any kind of slip ups, I think Dallas' schedule is about as positive as you can be. Given that you got a Nashville and an LAFC on that schedule, the RSL coming here, LA coming here, that's a big help.
Man, holy crap! I just looked at Houston. Wow, I didn't realize Houston had gotten so bad. They've won 1 game in their last 9, and they're on a 4-game losing streak.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that had turned into the trash fire that it is. That's
the Hector Herrera move has not worked out.
Has it not?
It's the problem is how you use him amongst the people that you have there. They're trying to use him as an 8 mostly, but then he has to do too much like into the box. If you don't have they have Coco Carrasquillo, who's also an 8, and they have Darwin Quintero, who's 5,000 years old. So it's like you're trying to mix some bodies in there, and maybe he's better with Darwin in front of him, but then Darwin's really old, and can he go 90? And so they just got their roster's not very, very good.
Well, sucks for them.
Sucks to be Houston, yeah.
It sucks to be Houston.
And Houston sucks.
Okay, yes, I think we all agree, yes. All right, so one of the other things that's been going on now over the course of the season and is that in the offseason, the Hunts made a bit of a surprising move. In my mind, I was surprised by it. That not only did they not that they signed Jesus to a deal, but they signed him to a record deal as a homegrown, and they are paying him big boy dollars. And the real question starting this season was, and I think it was a fair question, can Jesus produce at big boy dollar level? And I think at this point we can all agree he has done that and probably done it in spades.
Unquestionably.
And he is playing with a real next level swagger that I enjoy immensely. But it does worry me that at this time last year, what was the one thing that we talked about endlessly? We talked about, when is Ricardo Pepi going to leave this team? Because everybody's looking at our young star striker who's 18 or 19 years old, scoring all these goals and kicking ass for the national team. And I would make the hard argument that Jesus, while maybe a few years older, is playing at a way better level right now for Dallas than Jesus was last year, and he got sold for $20 million.
Yeah, the age thing is the big difference probably. Jesus is signed through 2025 with an option for 2026 with a, just under $2 million a year. So, you got 3, 4, 5, you got 3 or 4 years left at $2 million a year. So, that's 10 mil easy. That's a comfort level, right? So Jesus doesn't take a deal like that unless he's content to see it out. You don't sign that kind of number without having a willingness to do it. He's talked a whole lot about his desire to do something his dad never did, win a championship here. Now, is there a price? Of course there is. There's a price for him, what he would get paid. There's a price for the Hunts in terms of what they would get. Well, would he pull a $20 million offer? Because I think that's what it would take. It'd be another $20 million offer. I don't know. The slight age difference, there's a little bit of a height difference, there's a different style of kind of play. If you want a false nine or you want a guy that can combine as an off striker, yeah, absolutely. That's not as in demand as a pure high nine is, and does not quite command quite the dollar that a pure high nine does in terms of pure terms. I agree with you that he's playing better right now than Pepe was last year. Pepe had that big hot like month and a half and then cooled off. So is he more or less likely to get an offer? I think he's actually less likely to get an offer because of the age, because of the position he plays, and the style of player he is. He's slightly less likely to get that big offer. And I think that in the end, it'll come down to Jesus. Is he content with that number he's getting here? How much does somebody come in for? So I think you got him for, like the national team's a big deal for him, right? So like playing for Nico and solidifying himself as the guy for the national team, he probably watched Pepe go over there and not score and no longer be in the national team. I don't know, man. I don't know that this kid's leaving anytime soon.
All right, fair enough. Hold on one second. I want to ask, and let's set the World Cup aside. Dan, is there any? Is it worth having is it worth pointing out that it's possible that the Ricardo Pepi story and how that played out after $20 million was spent on him may in some way work negatively against Jesus?
I mean, it's entirely possible. You think that, the US was always seen as that gold mine of really cheap talent, and suddenly it's, someone paid real money for that guy and he's not had the impact you expect from that amount. Yeah, I mean, it's completely possible.
Yeah.
I don't know. Let's just look forward to him getting at least 3 goals in the next 7 games and breaking the FC Dallas goal scoring record.
Oh, love to see that. That'd be
fun.
Yeah,
that would be great. And then once you throw in, I mean, all bets are off if he goes to Qatar and has a tournament.
Oh, yeah, he bangs in a couple of goals in the World Cup. That's a totally different. No one uses the World Cup to make an evaluation of a player, scout a player. They will have known whether they like a player or not before he gets to the World Cup. But if you go to the World Cup and bang in a few goals, it absolutely raises your profile and your awareness and people's willingness to pay a little more money for you. I mean, you're dead right, Peter. If he does that, that'll change the landscape completely.
So, all right. Well, by the way, that finish last night faced up against one of the better center backs in this league was one of the nicest moves and finishes I've seen him do so far in his pro time. I've seen him finish a lot of really nice balls back when he was with the academy, but this is a whole other level. And I thought that particular goal last night was a very nice artisan finish.
I was kind of impressed. He was talking to media after the game, and just something you pick up from his ability to read the game. That just before that chance, he'd gone to Areola and said, "Hey, look at the centre backs. Every time you have the ball out wide, they drop to the 6. They kind of come and they lean towards the ball. Hit me on the edge of the box. I'll take care of the rest." And that's exactly what happened. 30 seconds after that conversation happened.
Really? Wow, that's great. It's a good story. It worked out great. Dallas won, Philadelphia 0, and Dallas solidifies their hold on the 3rd spot in the West. Next up is Nashville. Now they have to do that without Jesus. We mentioned he's under yellow card suspension. Buzz, what do you think Nico does in terms of rotation and filling in the gaps?
Yeah, well, like I've said, he likes to rotate by subbing as much, even more than he does as a starter. He'll be wanting to get some cohesiveness out of Leggett and Paxton together. So I think you'll want to start those guys. I think Edwin's going to hold on to that job. His back line is pretty set at this point, and so is the goalie. The real question is who he replaces Jesus with. I think he would like to try Benny, but I don't think it's possible. I think he'll go with Frank O'Hara to start the game, which changes the way you have to play because he's so static. He's going to play, most of the time when they're on the road, Dallas plays this mid block and then tries to get forward aggressively out of it. Well, Frank O'Hara can't really get aggressively forward out of it. Mm-hmm. So you'll be seeing Velasco and Areola get forward more aggressively. So it'll look more like a flat front line when that happens. We've seen it later in games from time to time that way. So, I think that's a pretty easy swap Hara in for Jesus, other than in the way it adapts your game. It means that Lletget and Paxton will need to get forward. So later in the game, again, he'll try and bring in earlier as he can some of these elements that can be useful in that scenario. Siki, whose ability to get forward out of midfield. You can look at Obrian, his ability to play on the break out of a sort of a mid block. You can sort of see where these things will lean. Nanu even coming in, and he gets forward from the back a little bit, is a guy that you could probably look for coming in. So the first 11, I think he'll start just like he did the last game, with the exception of Jesus for Franco Hara. And then he'll try and get Hara to play as much of the 90 minutes as he can, maybe bring in Benny if he has to for him. But he'll again want to use these subs to rotate out Paxton, Lletget, Areola. Probably not Velasco. He tends to let Velasco go because he's 19 years old. The guy Martinez, he'll probably try and rotate him out again, or Hedges, either one. It'll be about trying to take advantage of a team that's not playing great in Nashville. Try and do the kill the game thing they do, where they stifle the game for like 60 minutes and then go for it and get a goal and then rotate everybody out. That's what I would expect. It's only the one change actually in the lineup, if I had to predict it.
Well, it is the game is not Saturday. It's Sunday night at 7:30 local time, and it will be on TXA 21 and ESPN Plus. Blah blah blah. That is, and then they play, and then they've got 6 days off before Salt Lake comes into town the following Saturday.
Yeah, plenty of time to rest. Nashville played Sunday, so they'll have a full week off. It's a time of year where you're going to have to plow through it a little bit. The heat's starting to cool off a tiny bit, so that's less of a concern. So it's a game that's winnable. Nashville's not as good as they were. They're not as great at home as they were. They're only 3, 4, and 5 at home. This is a place you can get a result. So I think they'll probably try and stifle the game and try and steal a goal and see if they can get this one.
It'd be kind of interesting to see if they kind of carry on as they were in the home game against Nashville. Remember, Franco Hara was kind of sitting a little bit higher up, trying to pull Walker Zimmerman out. They had the fullbacks pushing really high to try and get the wingers inside.
You think there's any chance Alan Velasco goes on a 70-yard solo dribble and Uber goal to kill off the game?
There's always a chance. That's why the kid's fun.
I still can't believe he beat 5 players in a complete straight line.
I did.
How bad's your defense got to be for that?
Yeah, well, that was. Let's look at it from the positive of how awesome Allen was, and not as much about how bad Nashville's defending was in that moment.
Yeah, he can do it again. You never know. Look, the important thing with that kid is the progression. We've talked about it a bunch. He continues to get better and better and better. So it's exciting.
Yeah. Hey, speaking of progression, completely unrelated to all of this, so I guess it is somewhat related, was when I was at the game Saturday night, I was interested. I continue to be interested in the iterations of the sign on the stage. It's so weird to me. It's like they bought a Lego kit or something, and after every game, somebody goes over there and adds a new feature to it. They keep upgrading it, and so now they've introduced a significantly bigger, more powerful flame show on top of it instead of front of it. And they've added lights around the edge of the Longhorn in the badge.
It looks better every time I see it. I thought it looked good. Yeah.
But okay, but that's this. I'm really interested in knowing who built this thing for them, and did they build it knowing they could add these things later on, or was it, this isn't flashy enough, so we need to add things, so somebody comes in and starts modifying it and adding lighting kit? That's what I'm dying to know. How I want to hear the backstory of this sign and its maturation over the course of the season.
So that'll be an off-season podcast special. Sit down with Jerome and say, hey, you said all along this thing was going to change over time, but what did you envision originally?
So why did it have to change? Is it because they had to get it so quickly that they could only get it in one state, and they were waiting for parts from China? That's what I gotta know. I'm fascinated by that.
Yeah, they bought the base model, and then they go, man, it'd be really cool if this had an extra light. Oh, that's $1,000. We can do that. Oh, great. Next year, it'd be really cool if this had flames on the top. Oh, yeah, we can do that. That's $5,000. And so they keep throwing out these options for them, like it's a little bit more, a little bit nickel and diming them.
All right, what do we got to do to get lasers? That's all I want to know.
Yeah.
I want lasers shooting out of that mother here pretty soon.
Lasers, yeah.
Yes.
Just like you buy a ticket and you get free LASIK.
Yes. Hey, and also the other thing, Buzz, I wasn't at the game last night, and they didn't do it at the end of the game against San Jose. Did I hear them playing Disco Inferno after the game last night?
No.
Oh, I wish they would.
No, they did the one they always do.
Okay, then maybe the TV production played Disco Inferno, because I was clearly hearing Disco Inferno at the conclusion of the game on the television broadcast.
There was a few games earlier in the season where they did it, but they've cycled back to the playlist that is I can't remember what the name of the song is. It's a Spanish song, and then I can't even remember the name of the one that follows it. Ignore me.
Okay.
But yeah. So, I mean, I was joking with John Arnold about like the playlist never changes.
Yeah, I really wish we had Disco Inferno as the goal celebration. It's the perfect, franchise connected song. Great goal celebration song, win song, whatever you want to use it for. More Disco Inferno is always good.
I totally agree with you. All right. Anything else we need to cover on tonight's episode?
I don't think so. North Texas has got 4 games left, 1 home game. There's a couple of guys there that I think will help Dallas next year, but probably not this year. Assume they're going to get into the playoffs. Right now they're in. They'll probably keep going.
Hold on. Before this is one other thing I want to talk about last night's game. I'm interested, and I'll start with you, Dan. I'm sorry, I meant to do this earlier. I totally forgot. Dan, how do I word this question? What was your reaction to how the game was refereed last night?
I micromanaged heavily.
Interesting. Buzz?
I thought he was very aggressive with his body language. You can game control with a look, with a gesture, with a hey, that's it. He often ran over to guys and got right in their faces. I find that really weird. That's very confrontational, and it almost daring guys to do something or being it was. I don't like that at all. You should be defusing moments, not escalating moments. There
was a moment where he ran 25 yards just to put his hand up in that calm down gesture. I was like, calm down when you've just ran to me.
Yeah. Yeah, you can do the calm down gesture from where you were. You don't have to go over there. Now you go over there if guys are facing off to defuse. But if it's just a guy complaining to you, you don't run over there and get in his face. You stay away and give him the calm down to defuse, right? You running in there escalates unless you're going to break something up. I don't like to complain about referees too much, and I thought it was relatively level. I just really didn't like his demeanor and the way he carried himself in that game. He did not go out of his way to help keep the game in check. He added to the tension of the game rather than diffusing the tension of the game. And I don't like that at all.
Okay. No, and I think both, I'm assuming, Dan, you were at the game, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you guys got to see it from a perspective that I didn't on television. So that kind of aspect I didn't pick up on. I was more questioning about how he called the game from a foul perspective. He really let a lot go, which has its pluses and minuses. Steve in particular was really getting into the concept of, hey, look, because he has failed to diffuse some of this tension that is clearly building, this is going to turn into something. And of course, it did end up turning into something that ended up getting Jesus a yellow card very late in the game. But there's also aspects of that I appreciate when a referee just lets things go to a certain degree. And I just wondered if you guys, being at the game, thought he didn't call it tight enough.
I'm okay with letting people play, but you got to help diffuse it when you do. You can't make it escalate, which is what he did. And I also have a problem with the non-PK call on the handball. When it happened in the stadium, my assumption is natural position. But if you watch the replay, he moves his arm to get it in front of the ball.
He moves his whole body.
His arm is in a natural position. That doesn't mean you get to move your arm to block the ball and have it be in a natural position. Those are different things. The natural position is a deflection, not I moved my arm into a position to block it. That's a PK.
Well, if you look at it in relation to Hedges' handball from the other day, if one is, the other one has to be as well. And in fact, I would make the argument that Hedges is more a natural body position as a result of a shot coming from very close versus what happened in the Philadelphia instance. I think it just highlights that this is the kind of scenario that VAR really needs some work in, which is the ball continues to be in play and the viewing audience and the commentators and everybody in the stadium is all left wondering what in the world is going on, because it literally took the TV broadcast, because the ball continued to be in play for quite a bit of time after the incident. It took the TV broadcast what felt like a good 3, 4, 5 minutes before they ever got back to show the replay. And by the time, so much game time had passed when they showed the replay, it just exacerbated the frustration with the fact that VAR didn't stop the game and go, wait a second, you need to go look at this again. That's a big shortcoming.
The thing people don't know about VAR is that VAR does not want to undermine the referees. So, like, if something is borderline by anybody's judgment, they won't suggest a review. And, like, if there's nothing called, their tendency is to not go to it, not have you come look, unless they are absolutely 100% convinced you're wrong. But if it's at least like, listen, I agree with you that it's 100% that is wrong, but a neutral VAR may not think that way. They're thinking like that,
No, I agree with you. I'm not debating you, Buzz. What I'm pointing out is that that's the problem. That's the continued addition of human subjectivity in this, because if you go back to the Hedges situation, that's a deal where it was not called on the field. If I remember correctly, I'm right in this, right? The referee was told to go review it and look at it, and then he made the decision. It is. So that's where I think the clear complaint is to be had in this, is that if you look at those two situations, if one VAR official saw the Hedges situation and said, you know what, he needs to go back and look at that, and then last night a different VAR saw that situation and didn't go tell him to look at it, I think that's the big complaint everybody should have about the system.
Fair complaint, yeah. Fair complaint.
I think it's funny, they moved everything to Atlanta to, have this whole central VAR center to make things more consistent, and it's now less consistent. And this is going to, I'm sure this morning or whenever they get around to reviewing it, FC Dallas is going to get their second formal apology from pro referees of the season.
The missing component for me in the VAR system is there needs to be some sort of visual and audible indicator to the fans in the stadium, to the announcers, and to the people watching on television that something is being reviewed. Even if the ball is still remaining in play, there needs to be something that at least comforts the viewer that it is at least being looked at.
Yeah,
and
people don't understand the check system. But if you watch rugby, it's a very rugby union specifically. It's very black and white. Like if you watch a game on TV, the commentators will be like, "Oh, that's going to the test match official, 100%." And it is. And then it pops up on the screen. And I'm hoping that, they're talking about the semi-automatic offside in the World Cup and how that's going to be displayed on screens. And even the Premier League seems to be a little better about that now, that, that will be a thing in MLS coming forward.
Well, it always just harkens back, Buzz, to the thing that I have been begging and pleading and suggesting and recommending since the original days of VAR, which is just simply broadcast the audio between the VAR official and the center official, or the fourth official, whoever it is they're talking to. If they would just post that in real time, hell, charge a subscription fee for it as like a bonus thing that you have access to. I just think that would be a win-win for everybody across the board.
Well, that's how cricket works. That's how rugby works. That's it's no good. It's cool seeing like the video they put out 6 days after the fact, but by that time you're already gearing up for the next game, and it's easy to forget.
Mm-hmm.
It's just as simple as doing. I think it's at the EPL that has the big signage that says "play under review" and then "review over," like on the stadiums.
That would be a great addition for Major League Soccer. I completely agree with you. Just stick a yellow siren light behind each goal, or along where the fourth official sits, or something, or make him raise a purple flag or something. I don't know.
I'm involved enough in the MLS. I can tell you that they've just now worked out how to have that signifier on the feed that they send back to the stadium for broadcast. When they go to that double box thing where they show the ref looking, it now says on there, under review, confirmed. It has some language like that. So they've just gotten that part done where it's coming back to the stadium. So maybe the next step is that there's some kind of interactivity of it to the Jumbotron, perhaps. I don't know that helps you with the ball still in play or not, but it's baby steps with this league sometimes. They just created the center. They just now getting this interactivity with the broadcast. It's just going to take, they've just done this new Apple TV deal. They're a bit distracted, to be honest with you. Trying to figure that crap out.
Are they? It's probably going to be like, hey guys, like we need to do some spoon feeding here, sort it out.
Yep. Well, it didn't come back to haunt them. They ended up winning the game 1-0 in a huge game, statement win, probably the best win of the season. Frankly, one of the best wins this team has had in a really, really long time. And sets up a nice final run for the season and helps everybody feel a lot better about where everything's at. Yeah?
Oh, unquestionably, yeah. Phenomenal.
Even you, Dan, right?
What are you trying to say?
Nothing, man. Just I want to make sure you're all in you got a good vibe going on about the club.
Yeah, it's so fun.
You're always pissing on it.
That's not him. That's you.
Oh, that's me.
Yeah.
No, I am.
It literally says at the top of the site, Third Degree, the independent FC Dallas pissing site.
No,
and if it doesn't, I'm going to change it to say that.
Hey, and by the way, just so everybody knows, we have made a change on the website. So the article that I posted, how many years was it? 2020, Buzz?
Yeah, 2 years ago.
Yeah, so it is the title of it is now changed. I've never come up with a good name of it. It's called The Curious History of FC Dallas Burn, and it's over on the right-hand kind of menu structure, and it is the running cataloging and chronological history of all the crazy stories that have happened to this club, most of which are self-induced, year by year by year, dating back to the origins of the club. And we've got to add them for this year. The 2021 stuff was added a while ago, but we need to figure out if anything needs to be added for 2022. I know I'm forgetting something. We've talked about something clearly obvious that needs to go in there for this year, but I don't remember what it is.
Yeah,
do either one of you?
I can't remember what it is either.
I'm sure I've got it on a Post-it note or in my notebook somewhere. I've just got to go back and find it. Maybe it was the sign.
Yeah, the sign certainly could fit.
The original, initial, not this very far more high tech and violent sign. It's not the original.
Originally, it had a Stonehenge from what's this? Oh my gosh, the stupid band movie.
Spinal Tap?
Spinal Tap, when they have the Stonehenge come down and it's only 12 inches high.
Yeah.
It had that kind of vibe when they first put it in there. It wasn't big enough to fill the whole stage.
No. So
I'm sure we'll put something about the street jugglers or street magicians or whatever it is that they.
Maybe it was the street magicians. Yeah, maybe that's what it was. So if you've never read that article, go find it over at thirddegree.net. It's over on the right-hand side. It is. I think if you're not familiar with the club or the histrionics about the club and kind of our background with it, I think it's a good primer for anybody introducing themselves to this team's history dating back to 1996. It's pretty funny actually in many ways.
Read back through it when you brought it up the other day, and it was an amazing 20 minutes just reminiscing over things I remember and things before my time that I just cringed at while laughing.
I love the fact that you don't even get past the first season without learning the fact that the team trainer almost lost an eye in a shooting training exercise because a wild shot hit him in the face and almost knocked his eyeball out.
You know what's funny is I was out of practice the other day and I was talking to two people that work for the team who shall remain nameless, and I made that story and they were like, what? I was like, oh, you don't know that story? So I told that story. They were like, you got to be kidding. I was like, no, that's, they had no idea.
Yeah.
Most people that work for the team have not heard any of these stories over the last 27 years this team's existed.
Well, they need to check out Third Degree more often, as does everybody.
Yep.
This is Big B again, reminding you that Third Degree the podcast is brought to you by Soccer 90, your source for FC Dallas, North Texas SC, and U.S. national team gear. With everything from jerseys, soccer cards, and scarves, Soccer 90 has something for everyone. Shop soccer90.com now, and as listeners of the podcast, you can receive 20% off your order when you use code Third Degree at checkout. Some exclusions may apply.
Okay, boys. Well done. Job well done. Good going, FC Dallas. Go team go. I think that's going to wrap it up for tonight. Thank you, Dan. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to hearing the awesome new Pappy Check song in a second.
With the foul language in it, too.
Oh, that's the best part. I love that.
Like
It only has one. Yeah.
I like the uncensored Pappy Check. I like it when he gets all potty mouthed. And thank you, Buzz Carrick, for all your good hard work, sir.
Oh, thank you. And if you guys like this podcast, support us at patreon.com/thirddegree.
Good sales work. And thank you, FC Dallas Curious Fan. We'll speak to you next week on another episode of Third Degree, the podcast.
Winning again is amazing.
Woo! Woo! Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree Net Podcast. 25 long hard years, yeah. Buzz Carrick, yeah, the man. 25 years, you better be giving this man at least $5 a month. Patreon Third Degree, come on, pay the man. It's the only comprehensive coverage of my fucking club that I love so much. Hey, come on, it's Third Degree or bust. Yes, give the man some money. Hey, Third Degree Net Podcast.